Um, forgot my opening line. I had it. Grab a cozy drink or even a glass of wine and and join us here at the Soon to
Cheers.
Be Named Book Club. As always, we have with us Book Club Mom. We have Decal
Hello.
and me, the hostess, Ian, your hostess with the mostess. Heart Illustrations had some technical difficulties, and she's also adventuring in the world today. So she'll be joining us hopefully next week. Um, so for this week, we're continuing the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. We've read chapters basically, what, 3 to 8 this week?
Yes.
So in one sentence or less, how would you describe this section? Intensely descriptive.
Intensely gross and disturbing.
What's the story in the Bible where he cut off the ear?
Say that again?
That's what it reminded me of.
Wait, I didn't hear that. Sorry. Say that again.
Remember in the Bible where they cut off the guy's ear? That's what it reminded me of.
That's funny.
Weird twist to it.
We lost our fake girl earring after all that.
So, Decal, you weren't with us the last week for the first 2 chapters. What was your first impressions of just the story in general and the author and everything?
Honestly, really loved it. I think it's funny to like really put in like all the thoughts of a mom, and it's just very like boom, boom, boom. Got to do this, got to do that, and it's very realistic, which I really appreciate because I'm like, obviously I don't have kids, but like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I need to do A, B, and C, and oh, I gotta do that too, right? And you're like, damn. And it's just like I never really thought like they would ever put that in a book. So I really like it because it makes it feel real, but then like the vampire aspect, you're like, I don't know. So it's just funny.
Yeah, it's definitely an enjoyable read. I'm loving all of it. And but even of course we're not real mom. The only real mom here is book club mom. But just with just being the mom friend, I'm like this is correct.
Yeah, it's very realistic. Yeah. Think about, I love the whole thing about Slick talking about freezing sandwiches and her not realizing her kids are throwing them away. They would never do that. Like, what?
Yeah, I read that and I was like, thank God my mom didn't do that.
Right.
And that was funny. And then Patricia's little thought bubble, she's like, I almost said it was a good idea until everyone started laughing at her. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. So we jump in to this little section 5 years later than what we did with the first 2 chapters. Like at the very end of the second chapter, I know we jumped 2 years because it was starting of the 90s, but now we're in 1993. So a lot of time has passed, which is actually kind of interesting for just the storyline right off the bat. There's just overall with this section though, there's just a lot of quotable lines. There's so many things that I just completely enjoyed that I was like, oh boy. So we're gonna probably hit a lot of those. Let's see. So yeah, Corey's a teen now, which is always fun. I love the beginning of that chapter where where one of them was like, no one likes their children.
Exactly.
We're in book club in 1993. We're in Grace's house, which we get a lovely little description of, which her house just seems like exquisite Southern, like money, basically. Like that's her goal
Mm-hmm.
too. Like you can tell that's just Grace's whole thing. Um, I absolutely love I absolutely love that they were talking about the book, and one of them, I forgot who bluntly says something, but they were like, "You'd rather get stabbed 41 times than ruin the curb appeal of your home." And Grace was just like, "Yes." And even before I read that, I just in my head was like, "Yeah, kind of." I was like, "Oh, great, I identify slightly with Grace." I love, and
Yeah,
then
I like that they only like murderers and cults and all that stuff. I think that is so funny.
yeah, this small little, I mean, I just love the premise of basically like they just want that excitement. And then Patricia, of course, you see her like aching for it, which, well, she's the main character, so she's got to get some of it soon. We haven't really hit that yet, but I bet it's coming.
Mhm.
Um, and then, of course, as they were talking about, I think in their book, that was Helter Skelter. So, of course, the beginning of this section. So that, of course, talks about the Manson, murders and stuff like that. But I did love the very quotable line of like, "What good is free love if nobody showers?" I was like, me too. I'm like, no thanks.
Ah,
And then the end of that section sets us up basically for the rest of what we read, which they talk about Anne Savage and the mysterious white van that's parked out in front of her house. And of course, there's that whole conversation about Grace going over with food or something to find everything out. And, one of
right.
I forgot exactly who, but they're like, one of the moms, you're like, "You were snooping." She goes, "I was just being nice." I was like, "Me too, Grace."
It's a very stubborn thing to do.
Right.
That's
Rank with your neighbors, figure out who they are.
Exactly.
right.
Like the southern hospitality is alive and well in this book.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
That was one of the, like you said, here's one of the funny lines, beginning of chapter 4. They're talking about the Helter Skelter book, and Grace shakes her head and she says, "All that chaos and mess. I can't wait to return to my housekeeping." It's just so perfect, right?
Right.
The one thing they can do to set things right is clean the house. Life might be falling around them, but they know that if they clean their house and that's in order, then their life will get back in order.
Right. Oh man. So yeah, so then in the beginning of chapter 4, we basically, Patricia's all about she wants the excitement, jokes on her, it's right at the side of her house. But
Yikes.
I did love the just put us in like place of time. I love that she made the comment that they had to add the second phone line for Corey to talk to all of her friends, and I was like, now you know that we're in the 90s because like they don't have cell phones.
Yep.
So right, so yeah, so on the side of her house, we see at the beginning, we know who it ended up being, but we see a random old woman rummaging through the trash and just straight up eating a raccoon, which I was like, why that detail? Why did I need that, Grady Hendrix? I love, I absolutely love Patricia's response to that. I don't know if you can imagine what your response would be, but I can't imagine mine would be, "May I help you?"
Right. Really.
Way real fast.
Right.
Um, but through that whole thing, the details was just phenomenal. Like super vivid. At one point I was like, "Oh, I feel like I'm Patricia. Like this is a little intense. Like dang."
Yeah.
So he's very
Yes.
good at writing those scenes, which I can't even imagine what's to come with that.
Mm.
So we do find
I
out.
mean,
We end up
just,
finding out.
just just here, the old woman reached one gory hand into the raccoon's open belly and scooped up a fistful of translucent guts. She raised that hand, shining animal grease, to her mouth and gnawed on the pale lavender tube of intestines while squinting into the flashlight beam. Woo! Lovely.
Yeah. Thanks, Book Club Mom.
I'd just be running scared to the house.
Yeah, it definitely would not be May, I hope. That's for sure.
Right.
Say that again.
I said, I feel like if I were there, I don't know if I think it's like a big joke or like this is actually because like that just seems like I don't even know. I couldn't put myself in that situation, so I have no idea what I would do. But
Kidding.
Yeah, I know. I definitely. I don't know. I don't know if I would just run because that would be. I would because like I don't think I could just process what was going on fast enough. I'd have to
Right.
actually like sit and watch and be like, what am I looking at? Like, is this actually real? Like, so
I just keep thinking that her son was supposed to go out and take out the trash, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
right. I mean, I wonder if it would have been all avoided if he did, though.
Probably worse. I feel like he would have got eaten.
Yeah, but
Seems
if well, yeah, if Blue did it at the same time, like how she was planning, but I'm saying if he actually did the chore earlier in the day, I wonder if this would have
yeah.
happened.
Wouldn't have happened because he was in the daylight, right?
Right.
This was in the dark. Yeah.
Right. So eventually we do find out that it is Mrs. Savage.
Yes.
Talk about a character and immediately make her crazy.
Right.
So that of course was very descriptive too, just the whole like just the searing pain and not knowing what's the searing pain until like the last little bit, but like even that was just so descriptive. I'm like, geez.
Right.
I'm like, that's intense, but I mean, it was good to read. But yeah, so she got 11 stitches and a tetanus shot. And Mrs. Savage ate her earlobe.
Right. And her
I'm
pearly.
checking rabies at that point. If you eat a raccoon,
Right.
you know, tetanus is like the last thing I'm expecting. I don't know. I always think tetanus is like stepping on a nail, not
Right.
if another human who just ate a raccoon bites you. So I don't know. I'm thinking rabies is the first thing I'm checking.
Yeah. Well, I think just like they said in the book, those tests probably take a little bit to come back as something. Like they can do like a quick one, but they have to wait a day or two to actually get the real thing. So why they wouldn't just give her a preventative shot, I don't know. But I feel like
they probably not anything like that in their life, right? So
well, yeah, probably
not.
And then right, and then so the end of
yes, that was so sad.
That was so funny, but also so sad. So the end of that chapter basically is her like being so sad about the earring that she lost. And then Carter was just kind of like, don't worry, sweetie. I got those for free. And then I love that ending line of, I don't know why, but that made me cry more. And I'm like, same, Patricia, same. I'm like, I would have been so mad.
Your husband's a jerk.
Right. I was just.
It's like even her friends like thought it was super expensive too. But I guess if you're fooling a lot of people, why does it matter? You know.
Yeah. That's true, but.
Aww.
still, if you would have, I feel like everyone would have almost the same reaction, whether it be
Right.
anger or like under her all of her like the drugs that she was on, definitely just more crying.
Right. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was like, Carter, what are we doing? Yeah, so the next chapter ended up, I love, this was definitely another quotable one that I absolutely loved. It was she felt like a friend had died when she looked at her earlobe in the mirror. She was like, I've always had
Yeah.
one. I felt like a friend had died. I'm like, what? I'm like, I guess me too, but I just love everything in this book. Just all of these characters and their quirks. It is just so funny and amusing to me. Even like, and of course, Corey, or not Corey, Patricia's like, I just like, do you want to see my wound, to Corey and Blue at the breakfast table? And of course they're both like, yeah. So she unwraps her bandage, and then eventually Blue is like, another person knows what you taste like now.
That was yuck. Yuck.
Damn, kid.
Really?
That's a ruthless, and I like sometimes forget about that, and then I'm like, ouch,
Right. Yeah. It's so amusing that the author just honestly came up with all this stuff. There's no way all of this like really happened. So he had to, like, it's all imagination. I'm like, this is so funny.
Right.
And then we actually get a little bit serious after that whole like little funny business, that we get a little background on Miss Mary and just how like incredible of a like person she is, and everything she did and used to do. And I mean, of course that just made, I mean, anytime someone deals with those types of illness, I don't think they bluntly said which one it is, but of course it's probably borderline Alzheimer's and stuff like that. But anytime, anything messes with the mind, it's always sad. But, she just, dang, everything she did, incredible. I do, another quotable one was that after the little Miss Mary background, she of course gets a call from Grace, and is hearing about what's going on with Anne Savage in the hospital, and what they found. Oh, that was later thing. But anyway, just that Anne Savage was in the hospital, and that, she didn't hear that there was any rabies to worry about. And then I love the little line that CNN, NPR, and CBS, none of them could compete with the woman of the old village. About how they talk and get news through the system. I thought that was great. So of course, then she has all these, she has all these people calling her, and I think eventually it might have been that chapter, another one, but she does get like a bunch of casseroles and food and all this other stuff sent to her, which we get a detailed list of, which I thought was great. And then I forgot which. I keep forgetting to write down which woman says what, but one of the moms, of course, in the book club, or the not so book club, they made a comment that they found out that the nephew was from the north, and then that little explanation of just how people from the north are, and how different they are, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was Slick who said,
Oh, that's right.
I heard that Mrs. Savage's nephew moved down here from someplace up north. Everyone knew that any place up north was roughly the same. Lawless, relatively savage, and while they might have nice museums and the Statue of Liberty, people cared so little for each other, they'd let you die in the street.
Yeah. I was like a little dramatic, but all right. Yeah, I thought that was very funny. And then the ending of that chapter. The ending of that chapter, we do find out that Anne Savage does end up passing away, and of course Grace, with all of her all of her sources, call them. We learned that she ended up passing from blood poisoning and she had tracks on her inner thigh, which of course Grace assumes that those are drugs. But seeing the beginning of this, beginning of the title of this book, we it could be something else, but we don't know.
Yep.
And then, of course, that ends with Patricia saying that she's gonna take something by the house. So ends up being one of the casseroles that she got
Of
from
course.
someone. I think the taco one specifically, of course.
Right. Taco casserole.
Taco casserole. So the beginning of that chapter 6 we're into now, yeah. The beginning of the chapter 6, we get a little blurb about how the neighborhood is changing and people are knocking down the old homes to build these like mini mansions that span across all of the property line. And of course, you know, she's been there for so long, she's not about it, which is completely understandable. And then we get to Anne Savage's house, which we already know that she's completely in love with. She loves the aesthetic of that house and just the decor. But so of course she knocks and no one answers, and then she's like, "Oh, the door should just be open," and so she just walks right in. I'm like, "All right," and then she finds a man who's dead. Well, supposedly, but she finds a man who's dead, whose pulse is she can't find a pulse, and his skin is cool, just chilling there. And then as she did CPR, she found out that he really wasn't dead. And then so that must have, yeah, so we don't get his name until the next chapter, but we find, that's the nephew, and that was just a weird first interaction for sure.
Yeah, and first of all, I kind of forgot what year it was. So I was like, who just walks into somebody else's house like that in the neighborhood without even knowing this guy? And there's a creeper van out front. So why would you go in?
I know. Sometimes I completely forget that this book is at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, because I feel like that's kind of when the culture turned to like locking your doors and like, being more isolated instead of just like that stereotypical neighborly, stuff. So it's always very funny to me that this city in general has not been touched by that yet.
I just think it's funny as well because they read books about serial killers all the time.
I didn't even think about that.
Houses, like who does that?
Right. Right. They just talk about security cameras, but we'll leave our doors open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't happen here. Just happens everywhere else.
Not in the South.
Not in the South. Oh, it was funny. I was watching, it was just a random TikTok, and someone was advocating like, oh, the serial, like, is it like sarcasm, but the serial killer world is dominated by men. We need more women serial killers. And then like, I didn't really watch the rest of the video, but after I saw that, I was just kind of like, well, yeah, women don't get caught. It's like they had to be smarter than these like slightly egotistical men. Like, come on now. So then we get James Harris show it. Well, we find out the nephew's name is James Harris with interaction at the front of Patricia's house in the middle of a chaotic dinner. So he shows up with the empty dish and to give it back, and introduces himself, and then Patricia invites him in. And so during their little interaction, James is actually paying attention to her, and of course she's eating it up because everyone else is just using and abusing her as a mom. And then James stands up to Corey, like in the middle of it, to kind of get her to stop being antagonizing, which I thought was interesting. But then we get a little, like, we get a little weird. We get Miss Mary, at the beginning of the dinner, she's like, talking about a picture and this guy and, this other stuff. But then she puts it, like, in her own mind, she puts it together that the James Harris is the guy that she's talking about and in this supposed picture that she has. So that's definitely an interesting little detail. I don't know if anything's going to come from that or if it is just going to be left to like a Miss Mary freak out. But of course, Patricia at the very end is left frustrated because James Harris left and basically everyone else did except Carter eating his ice cream. And then he left and left the bowl for her. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
So, and then the last chapter where we left off, she goes back to James Harris's house. We get a little bit more of an explanation of why he doesn't like the sun. Of course, at this point, there's a lot of details that is kind of going towards like he might be a vampire, but I don't know. I don't know if the author, like the way he's detailed, if he'd make it that obvious. I don't know. But he talks about how he is a condition from the sun. She ends up helping the overwhelmed, quote unquote, James Harris, who just shows her a bag of money.
Yeah, $5,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think on some level makes sense that it would, like, Anne Savage wouldn't have trusted the banks. So she just kind of kept the money, hidden away in her house.
But as somebody who knows absolutely nobody, the first person you meet, I'm not going to show 85K to and be like, what do I do with this? Like,
well, yeah, that's true.
But remember, he's trying to find somebody to help him, right? Establish an identity. And he gets Patricia to do that for him.
Right.
He doesn't have any identification. He gives her some line about, it was stolen or whatever happened. It's lost in the move, right? And she proceeds to help him.
Right. And then we get the situation at the bank where lying came so easy to James Harris. So that's, that hopefully doesn't come to bite Patricia back in the butt. And then it just ends with her inviting James to book club. I was like, oh, Patricia. Right. Exactly.
Thing is, I think they're so fascinated with serial killers, and now the first man that shows up with 85K and in a random big house by himself, you're like, let's invite you to book club because you're the guy we read about. Like,
in the creeper van.
In the creeper.
In the creeper van.
Yeah. The creeper van.
The house we're obviously need to get now, so.
Right.
But I did think it was funny that he said he got bit by a wolf, which I thought wolves and vampires, not just from like Twilight, but they have a weird thing against each other, don't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of like, I'm pretty sure, but there's a lot of like cute little lore that's going on here. If James is actually a vampire, like I think there's a lot of things that are pointing to that, but again, like, would the author just make it like that blunt?
I feel like at least one of them, yeah. I feel like he is very like how does he not have an ID? He could be like 200 years old. You can't put that on an ID, right? So that was like the first thing I'm thinking.
So are we
maybe
saying
he doesn't actually want to drive a car.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's say what would we guess Miss Mary is in her 70s or 80s, right? And
Yeah.
if she has a photograph from 60 years ago, so yeah, I mean he could be right, 80, 100 years old, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, do we? So we are we? Do we think James Harris is the vampire? Do we think Miss Mary had like? Is that interaction gonna come back in the book? Like, is there gonna be a photograph, or is Miss Mary right?
Well, the thing is, I think vampires don't they just not show up in photographs, like, because they hate the light, right?
Potentially, I'm not really sure of that.
20th
directly.
century. He's a 20th century vampire, so he's showing up.
Right.
Walks in front of the mirror, you should be.
Funny. So or Decal so I know Book Club Mom thinks that Miss Mary's right. Or there's Miss Mary's onto something, I should say. Do you think Miss Mary's onto something? Is James Harris like the supposed vampire we're slaying in this book?
I don't know if he's the one in particular that they're slaying, but I think he is definitely a vampire. And I think he definitely knows Miss Mary. And he even was like, oh no, she's got Alzheimer's, or like, oh no, just old people, whatever.
Right.
Like, especially like, I understand people with Alzheimer's, they do look at like younger people sometimes and think it's somebody they do know.
Right.
So like, I do understand that, but I feel like this seems a little too real. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm 100% convinced that the author would just serve him up on a platter for us. He seems like he's a little bit more smarter than that. But I am interested to see like if James Harris ends up being the vampire, how like everything works out or goes down, I should say. Sorry, just put this over here. Who so far is your favorite character, and why?
Probably Anne Savage. She's dead now, but
Why
that
is
was wild. Like, you can't just make a character so crazy that it's just like, nope, done. Right? She's, I don't know. I think she's still alive somewhere. Because they're like, oh, no funeral. She's cremated, done, right? I don't know. I feel like that can't be real.
Oh, so you still think Anne Savage is still alive?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, really?
That would be an interesting twist.
Huh.
Like, nobody has proof. There was no funeral. There's nothing in the papers. There was literally not a single thing indicating she's actually dead.
True. So do we think Anne then is also a vampire?
Well, then Patricia's gonna have some sort of side effects if that's the case. I don't know if they're a late set or what's going on.
Right.
Maybe she just was the victim of a vampire.
Well, yeah.
It was like a personal hate crime, actually, but.
I feel like because this is so centered around Patricia, I really enjoy reading about just everything that's going through her mind. But I feel like I kind of would like any of the moms as part of this Not So book club. Like if they were the central character, they've all got their like weird little quirks, and just the writing on them is phenomenal. If I had to pick one character, I probably like Grace definitely seems a little boring, but just her little side stuff is just absolutely hilarious to me. So if not Patricia, I think I gotta go with Grace.
Yeah, I'd say it's Patricia, Grace, and Kitty. Those are
Oh, Kitty.
my top three.
Yeah.
Kitty.
Yeah, that's hilarious because she's the Southern belle who lives in the mansion, but it's run down, dilapidated, and she's the mom who's like, we all hate our kids. There's nothing to like about them.
Right. And then we got the little snapshot of her house in the first two chapters. And she was just like, I don't have time to clean everything. You get to deal with
Right.
stuff. Like Patricia was even like, this makes my house look impeccable.
Right. She's the real mom with the
She's the
5
real
kids
mom.
and no time.
Right.
And she doesn't care.
That's funny. So where are we going next? So the next, I think we're gonna get next section. We're gonna get through two different sections, but or at least through one and then into the second one since the next one's a little small. But now we're going month by month. So this last one was May of 1993. We're going to hit June and then part of July 1993. So we've slowed down the timeline. So things are happening this summer, probably because James Harris has entered as a character. But where are we going next? What's going to happen at book club? Is he going to be part of the group? Is he going to be like sussed out?
No, I think they're gonna all be so intrigued by him. I think he is just gonna be like, first of all, the talk of the town, and now that he's in their book club, like they are really gonna be like their own, basically like their own cult, honestly. I mean, they already kind of are, but I think when you add somebody like that to it, it's very Manson-like, right? So it's kind of, now they are going to be the talk of the town.
Do you think he's going to be the ringleader then?
For sure.
Really? I don't know. I mean, I can see something along those lines happening, but I can't really see him being the ringleader with all of their strong personalities and like who they
I
are.
mean, he certainly has one follower in Patricia already, so
That is true. That is true.
Yes, she definitely is under his spell, for sure.
pretty easy to
Does he
get
listen
one.
to Right.
Right, because he
Mhm.
listens to her, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do we
I
think
think
one of,
that's what all women want.
Yeah.
well, yeah.
They don't have kids or a husband that listen to them on a daily basis. So the one man that is, like that's just the ringleader right there.
Step one of joining a cult: listen to other people.
Right.
Or starting a cult.
Can't be that hard.
That's true. It really can't. There's not that many logistics. That's what we should have done. We should have started a cult instead of a book club.
Yeah. Book club.
Book club.
The book club. That should be our book club name.
Introducing
We'll
Ted
change it.
Bundy and Charles Manson.
Be the KKK club. Every county.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah. Technical difficulties in the background.
Yeah. To cut us off.
Do we think one of the moms at the end of the book is going to end up being like a vampire? Do we think somewhere in like one of the dads even? Because like he did make a comment that may play into like how he gets even to more in their inner working system, and that he's interested in real estate. And one of the mom's husbands does real estate. I think it was. No, I don't think Mary Ellen. I think Mary Ellen has the cop husband, doesn't she? I forgot which one it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anything is possible. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens, especially when the title of the next chapter is "The Bridges of Madison County." So it makes you think James is going to hoodwink all these people somehow. So we'll see.
I don't know what that book's about, so
I think he's
you
going
must
to tell.
have some knowledge.
Love story. It's a love story. So
Mm.
yeah.
Right, so we've got Bridges of Madison County for June, and then July we're gonna get The Stranger Beside Me. Oh boy. I think we're gonna find more things about James Harris in this next section.
Right, for sure.
Any other quotable things you wanted to point out? Any other side comments? Any other predictions? Even I'm not really like a lot of this. I'm enjoying the reading, but a lot of this discussion is based just in. I had the word and then I lost it. It's based on a lot of like facts. Like there's a lot of like you're getting a lot of background basically. That's what's going on. We haven't got to any like juicy bits of a mystery or anything yet. I mean, James Harris himself is a mystery, but I'm pretty sure in the next section he's gonna get more mysterious.
Right. Well, I did think it was funny that Patricia, it popped into her head when James was asking her for help with the ID and sorting that out. It popped into her head to think about Ted Bundy at that moment. So it just was weird that she has these unusual thoughts, and things pop up like that. And I just thought, wow, that's telling right there. You should have ran as fast as you could away from him.
Right. It definitely
Was
could
your
be foreshadowing.
But I guess at the same time, if you're just doing the same, not the same thing every day, but if you're really don't have too much excitement in your life, you're kind of like, you know what? So what if this is Ted Bundy? Let's make it interesting, right? Like I will drive a creeper van, and he has this amount of cash sitting in the car with us and in my purse right now, right? Like, but at the same time, like if I was doing nothing and I only had 2 kids and a dog, like yeah, I would also pick up a stranger and drive around in a creeper van and see what happens, right? So
Well, I think on some level, like especially with just how like not really monotonous, but also just how monotonous their lives are, and especially reading about like serial killers and everything else going on. Like I on some level, like especially when you read or even watch those like documentaries, on some level you're like, oh, I would do something different. So I think even Patricia might have that same ideology of like, well, I know where people made mistakes. I'm not going to make the same ones that they did.
mhm.
So why wouldn't you, if you think you're, going to be safe in those situations, why wouldn't you want to be part of that excitement? That part of like a documentary or history or, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be interesting. That's for sure. Do we think we're going to have, so we had a death this time with Anne Savage, or potential death, we'll say. Do we think we're going to have another death, or is it going to be more of a like building the storyline for us?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think we're only going a couple months. I don't know if another death will happen.
I don't really know. Also, though, what happened to that Francine lady that came to like clean his house?
Yep.
Oh
Who's
yeah,
That's
she?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We only slightly met her.
Right.
Because like it made it sound like she didn't really leave, or she never even came in the house, or whatever, from
Mm-hmm.
James or whatever his name is perspective.
Yeah.
So
Well, she said, well, yeah, she really didn't give us like who she was at the very beginning, but eventually she's like, she's a cleaning lady essentially. She does cleaning like services. And so I bet
Mm-hmm.
that's what, she was going to come in and clean the house, especially with um, all of the stuff that was all everywhere. But supposedly,
Right.
according to James, she quit. So, which Patricia was like, she doesn't usually stray away from
Quit.
jobs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but at the same time, it's like if she was waiting for like everybody in her little town to be talking about her going to James's house and like kind of like
Oh, right.
whatever happened, and it's like nothing got around, so that's a little confusing. She never really went in the house. Like it was like I feel like his house holds a lot of secrets that I feel like I don't know if she is alive or not.
That's a good point. Yeah, we'll have to see if she comes back into play. Because I mean, if they end up doing some investigating on him, of course she's going to be one of the first people they go looking for to ask, because she, of course, had an interaction with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that definitely might lead to something. Mm. All right. Any other last little tidbits anyone wants to get in? Other things they saw that they want to discuss?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, then, I think for what page are we on right now? 90. Oh, that's perfect. Does, oh, how many do you want to do? How many pages do we want to do? I know some of us are busy this next week. Does 60 pages sound good? 70? What are we thinking?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again? Sorry, decal.
60.
60? Okay. Then we will be reading this week until chapter 15. So read chapter 14, not chapter 15. For the hardcovers, I don't have the paperback with me, but for the hardcovers, that's page 150. Chapter 14 ends on. Alrighty, and thank you for everyone who joined us, today for this lovely stream, and anyone who joins us later. I hope you're enjoying this book as much as we are, because I certainly am. As always, I'd like to thank Book Club Mom for joining us on this adventure.
You're welcome.
I'd like to thank Decal. She disappeared for a second. There she is. I'd like to thank Decal for coming here. And then, of course, hopefully Heart Illustrations will be with us next week, which you can find all of her info on her Insta, which will be below this, and of course in any of our link trees. And of course, you can find all of us in our lovely little Discord that we've got going on if you want to put your own opinions in, and we of course can say them on our stream. But I hope to see you all next week, and have fun reading. All right. Bye, everyone.